Welcome to our second Blender video, introduction to the 3D viewport. I have the viewport filling up the full screen at the moment, having used Shift and Space to toggle between the editors. And then over on the side, I have the Tools menu open, and I made the menu larger by holding down Control and using the middle mouse button so you can adjust it to your preference. You can also adjust the width of those menus, going in and out as much as you want, and the navigation menu over here as well. In documentation, the navigation menu is referred to as the properties menu. I like to call it navigational menu because there's a properties editor that we will use a lot, and I want to be able to distinguish between the two editors or menus. And in the 3D viewport, to move things around, middle mouse button down, you can hold Shift and push middle mouse button to pan, Control and middle mouse button to zoom smoothly in and out of the object. Scroll will also zoom in and out, but it'll do it in increments and looks a little bit more jumpy. Over on the number pad, we can use that for shortcuts in viewing the perspective menu from certain views. First of all, if I hit 5 in the center, this will toggle between orthographic and perspective. Perspective has a vanishing point, where if I look at these lines, they're actually physically smaller here than they are here, even though our brains know that they're supposed to represent the same size. That's because that's the way we see everything. If you're going down a long road, far away, it looks smaller, even though the dimensions of it probably have not changed at all. And so this kind of is the computer's way of tricking us into seeing and thinking and feeling that this is in perspective. Sometimes it's handy to use orthographic, where this width here is the same width there. And there's many useful things for that, especially like in going between the different views. If I hit 1 on the number pad, I look at the front view. In orthographic, I can see the grid. I can zoom into the grid, and in Blender you can actually see subdivisions of that grid as you zoom in. And it can help you kind of line things up and do a little bit of building, and it's a great tool to be able to use. If I hit 5, I just toggled out of that, and I'm still in the front perspective, even though I'm don't see that grid anymore now because I am in perspective mode. 7 looks at the scene from the top. 9 looks at the scene from the bottom in this case because it just flipped that view. If I go back to 1 where I had front and I hit 9, it actually rotates the view around, so now I'm looking at the back perspective. If I hit 3, I'm looking at right, but if I hit 9 right after that, I'm looking at left. I can also get to those opposite views very quickly by holding down Shift and pressing, Control and pressing 1 gets me the back perspective. Control and pressing 7 lets me see the bottom of my model that I'm working on, and Control and 3 flips it so I see the left side. Don't press Control, hit 3, and now I'm on the right perspective. When you're working with your model, being able to switch around is really, really important between those different views to see things and work with them effectively. If I want to select a different object, I can right-click. For this instance, this is the camera that I just selected. And I'm going to hit the period on the, or decimal, on the number pad. And what that does is it just references where that is. So as I zoom around, it just resets to things being focused on that object that I now have selected. If I right-click on my cube to select it and hit period, it'll again zoom in and focus on that particular object. Sometimes when you're using Blender things will start not moving quite the way that you want to, and selecting it, hitting the decimal on the number pad is a great way to reset that so that you're looking at it fresh. Also in this, if I hit the 0, I go to the camera view where I can actually see what's going on. But if I try to rotate, I lose the camera view. And this is actually something where in the navigational menu, if I close out a few of these for right now, I'm going to go ahead and close out that one too as well. 3D cursor, I'll expand those as I talk about them. But if I go into the view section, there's one that says lock camera to view. And if I hit 0 again to go into my camera view, now that I have this selected, I can actually change where my camera is. So if I hit 0 again, I zoom out. And I actually don't see, I think my camera was actually moving around with me. I don't know. I don't see my camera anymore. Where did I see my camera anymore? Oh, I am in a different view, aren't I? Am I in a different view? I am. Right. Of course. What was I thinking? Okay, that's not going to work. Welcome to video 2, where we're taking an initial look at the Blender 3D Viewport. Right now I have the 3D Viewport expanded to fill up the screen, shift space to do that. I made my menus a little bit larger so they're easier to see, and just middle mouse button and control to expand those and change the size. It's very easy. In the 3D Viewport, middle mouse button, push down to rotate. Press Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Press Control and middle mouse button to zoom smoothly in and out. You can scroll in and out, but it's very choppy because it goes between increments. The menus I have open right now are the Tools menu and what I call the Navigation menu. In documentation, this is referred to as the Properties menu, but we have a Properties editor that's very different, and so to distinguish it a little bit, I use Navigation menu. The other nice thing about using the term Navigation menu is N is the shortcut to open and close the Navigation menu. T is the shortcut to open and close the Tools menu. The Tools menu will change based on what mode you're in as you edit objects and work with objects and do different things with them. The Navigation menu should stay fairly consistent through all of that. Right now, we're going to go and look at some different ways of viewing your object. So I'm going to use the number pad to switch between some default views. When you use the number pad, make sure that numlock is on. 1, we'll look at it from the front perspective. Even rotate it down a little bit. 1 again, and it takes it right back to where it was there. If I hit 3, I look at it from the right, 7 from the top. If I hold down Control and hit 1, I look at it from the back. Control and 3 is left, Control and 7 is the bottom of it. So you can see all the 6 sides of it very quickly and easily. If I hit 9, right now I'm on bottom perspective, it'll switch to top and toggle between those views every time I hit 9. If I look at it from the front and I hit 9, it'll switch to back and front and it'll toggle between those views. If I look at the right, again, 9 will toggle between the views. 5 on the number pad will toggle between orthographic and perspective. Orthographic, if I'm looking at this straight on, orthographic means that there's no vanishing point. And if I'm looking at it from one of the default views, I can see the grid expanded out to basically infinity as it goes. As you can travel up or down as much as you want and it would still continue the grid. But I can also zoom in and I can see that it subdivides the grid. And if I zoom in again, it subdivides the grid. although it stops subdividing it after a little while. If I zoom out, again, it'll go into larger and larger grid spaces until I zoom out to the maximum that it'll allow me. I'm going to go ahead and get back into that object. I'm just going to hit period on or decimal on the number pad. That will take me right back, centering in on the model. You notice that orthographic, as I spin it around, it has a very weird look to it because our eyes often interpret this as looking bigger than the one in front. And that's mainly because we are, our brains look at things with vanishing points in mind. They see things getting smaller the further away it is. I could also go down to here and I could change the shading mode to wireframe. And here it can get really confusing because it's hard to tell what's the front and what is the back of the shape. With perspective, it's a bit easier because the smaller side is in the back. Okay, we can trick our mind into saying the smaller side's in the front, but really part of it's just how you think about it and look at it for how we interpret it. I'm going to switch back to solid mode. And so those are some ways I can get around things pretty easy. The slash key on the number pad will change things to local perspective, meaning that right now if I scroll out a little bit, I only see that cube, whereas if I hit that slash again and scroll out, I can see this little round circle here that represents a lamp, and I can see this pyramid object over here that actually represents the camera. If on the number pad I hit 0, I actually go to, from the camera, this is the way it sees the scene. If I move though, I lose the camera, but I can actually change that by, I'm going to go back into the camera here, by going into View in the navigation menu and selecting Lock Camera to Grid. This is one of the easiest ways to reposition the camera to where you want it and get it exactly how you want. Just remember that if you are in this view and you change it, then you lose that perspective. Hit 0 again, or one of the other numbers on the number pad to exit out of the camera view. And then that camera is positioned where you left it, and that's actually how it's seeing that object.